Hi, I'm Deborah.
And I'm Lawrence.
And in this video, we're going to talk about how to help your child get through the pandemic with, the best mental and emotional health that they can have. So this topic is a little more urgent for people whose kids didn't have any mental health problems before the pandemic, because this is something new then, something you're not used to. Obviously, people whose kids did have problems with mental health before the pandemic are presumably going to understand that this is only making it worse. So after the pandemic started in the spring, there was a national survey conducted of 3,300 high school students, and it found that nearly a third were reporting they were unhappy and depressed, much more than usual. But about 50% also said they felt a lot more uncertain about the future. And that was one of the problems we've all been dealing with, young and old, during the pandemic, is the uncertainty. Not knowing what's going on.
Nobody knows what's going to be happening.
Right. And the other thing that if your child or your family is grieving, if you've lost someone to COVID, or to something else that happens in the past 10 months. One thing that was very concerning recently is we have a teen that we're connected with online who lost their best friend, and their parents did not understand how this was. I think maybe some adults dismiss the importance of a best friend in someone's life, and so the parents didn't really understand why this kid or teen was being so strongly affected. If you all in your family or friends or have had a loss, even somebody you don't know really well, you have to be aware that it could hit your kids a lot harder than you think it would. So please be open to, grief counseling or, therapy or something. And don't assume that kids are too young to really be affected by it.
They aren't.
Yeah, they're never too young. And this is another thing we want to say is, about suicide. Kids as young as just a few years old have committed suicide. Okay, so this is something, remember that depression is a potentially fatal disease. Okay, so this is something that you just can't dismiss. Now, don't assume that your child is going to be fine just because they were fine before the pandemic. This is an unprecedented situation. There are many adults who haven't been able to handle this pandemic without, ending up feeling unmoored, depressed, anxious. So, remember, adults have a certain amount of life experience and also free agency that kids and teens don't have. So it's completely different for kids and teens to deal with this.
I mean, I'd say the pandemic is affecting everybody, and I struggle to think of any positive way it would affect people, except maybe introverts who don't have to interact with people.
Even introverts. But, you and I are both introverts.
I know. I'm just saying that one particular thing could be considered a benefit.
Maybe. Yeah.
However, I'd say for the most part, pandemic is definitely causing things that aren't good. And, obviously it's causing people who weren't depressed before to become depressed, and people who already were depressed to suffer even more.
Yeah.
And it's affecting, I'd say, most people.
And the thing is, there are a couple things that the pandemic is doing that are dangerous for everyone. But again, remember this, there's more of an impact on kids and teens. There's the isolation. So there's increased isolation for everyone. Even you may think that your kid or teen is not having a problem because they've got your family. Well, but they're not getting all those, they're not, even if they don't have close friends, let's say they're a kid who doesn't have a lot of friends, they still had casual social contact at school with a lot of different kids and adults, and you can't discount the importance of that.
Yeah. So even if it was minor social interactions, it's still something. It's still interaction. And that's definitely something that I think humans need at least a little bit of.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling horrible. I want to see my friends again. It's making me feel real bad. That's honestly primary reason why my depression has gotten worse, because I can't interact with the people that I could trust to make me feel better during times when I was struggling.
Yeah, and it's just actually especially the kids who don't have friends who are suffering. Lawrence has friends and friends he's been in contact with continually. The kids who don't have friends don't have don't have those people to connect with. And isolation before the pandemic was a big problem. The group that was really having a problem with it was older adults. Now it's causing problems for a lot of other different people. And so, as I said, you may not feel that your child is isolated, but remember, you're adults. You can't connect with them on the same level. So it's not the same thing. Yeah, having a family is great, but it's not the same thing. So we have isolation, we have uncertainty, and we also have lack of structure. All of us have less structure, and that's a problem. A lot of kids, especially teens, may think that they really don't want rules and structure, and they don't want too much, but everyone thrives with a certain amount of structure. So the first thing to do is make sure you talk to your kid or teen, okay? And you probably know from past experience that when you ask them how they are, they'll say, I'm fine. And
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I think for me, at least, it came from a place of not wanting to spend time explaining what's going on and why it's making me feel a certain way.
And kids who are younger don't have the words. They're not as verbal, so they don't have a way to say it. And the other thing to be aware of, teens are rarely going to come out and say, I'm depressed. It's not the language they tend to use. They tend to say, I'm stressed, or I'm sad, or I'm feeling down. So it's not that they're minimizing their feelings. It's just that this is not the same. They don't use the same language as adults would, and especially as medical professionals would. So don't expect your child to say, well, I think I'm suffering from low-level depression.
And not a lot of them are well versed on the subject. They don't know how to put things into words regarding things like depression.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. I've been writing about depression since
that's the only reason I knew anything about depression.
Mid-90s.
Because she
However, he never told us until things were really bad that he was depressed, even though he knew a lot about it. So we're the situation where I should have known what was going on.
And I mean, I'm glad that you have that experience, because I think without it, I definitely would have had a harder time realizing what was going on.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Don't blame yourself for missing cues and stuff, unless you're a psychiatrist or psychologist, and then hopefully that's not the case. But the thing is,
might want to reassess your career.
Yeah. You have to be persistent. You have to provide situations that your child can talk comfortably with you in. So in other words, don't sit them down and say, so how are you feeling?
You gotta make it organic. You gotta make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I find it hard to open up if I'm, being basically interrogated.
Have them make a meal with you. Have them do some chore around the house with you. Go for a walk. Just make it a comfortable situation.
Although I don't know if going for a walk during these times.
Well, it's actually, depends what your situation is. If when you walk out the door, you have no space, then
okay.
Sure.
Well, anyways,
I realize we're spoiled by
yes,
being in the suburbs. We know that, but so find some kind of situation where away from anyone who's one of those, oh, kids don't have anything to be depressed about.
If you, by the way, if you are one of those types, I hate you. I hate you. Get off. Leave.
Yeah, you need to do some homework.
Hey, watch a bunch of our videos. We've made videos aimed towards those type of people. Yeah. I think.
Well, don't say those type of people. There are people who just haven't had the background.
If you are the kind of person who understands it but still denies it, I hate you.
Children, very young children can be depressed.
Yeah.
Infants can be depressed. Okay, so
if you're just ill-informed, learn more.
Right. Definitely. So because again, your child doesn't necessarily have that information and very likely doesn't have that language.
I'm lucky I did.
So be persistent. Don't assume because they say I'm fine that they're fine. We know as parents that's maybe the case 5% of the time. There's always something going on even during normal times. So talk to them constantly. Don't let it slide. So then also, if you're talking to them on a regular basis about how they're feeling, you can see if there's a change, hopefully, that they may start talking about it. And also, it's just like anything else. You do it enough and it's practice. You get comfortable with it. They'll get more comfortable with it. So then there are some things to do that actually are good for you too. What's very, very, very important with anxiety or depression is de-stressing. Stress is in many ways physically a bad thing. I'm not talking about just normal stress, the stress that actually gets you out of bed instead of just laying there for the whole day. I'm talking about the, too much stress. Most of us are under too much stress just from going through the pandemic.
Oh, so, yeah. I'd say a lot of people are just constantly crushed by the fear of uncertainty in this situation. And that definitely puts a lot of stress on a person.
The fear of getting COVID, the fear if you've lost your job, if someone in your family has lost their job.
If you're struggling to pay bills or something.
Right.
There's a lot of things.
There's so many things, obviously, that this situation is generating. We can't even name all of them. But what you have to do and what your child has to do, and you can maybe do it together, is get the stress off your body on a regular basis. So that means exercise. It can be going for a walk. It can be hiking, which, it's that combines being outside and exercise is two different ways that you de-stress, because a lot of people feel better in nature. It's something that helps a lot of people. And then the exercise gets the stress off your body. But most of us become more sedentary during this lockdown or pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And so that's actually the last thing we should be doing. And you also need to be getting more sun for most people because we're inside way too much. And you need the sun, especially during this time of the year. So meditation, if it doesn't sound too woo-woo to you, try different kinds of meditation with your kids.
I've tried meditating and it does sound, how did you describe it? Woo-woo?
Woo-woo. There are different kinds of meditation. Lawrence and I both have a little trouble with mindfulness meditation because we have ADHD, and I did try a lot, and I did this at work a lot, and it was kind of tough for me. I did it, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. We also tried something called sound meditation. There are a lot of different kinds of meditation. Try different kinds.
I honestly had the most success sitting in the middle of my loud classroom. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing is a lot of people work using the sounds of a coffee shop. Because they can't go to a coffee shop and sit there nowadays. A lot of people actually work. It's considered to help creativity for a lot of people with that hum of stuff because it's like a white noise. But anyway.
Never mind.
Just find what works for you.
Yeah.
Try different things. There's a lot of different suggestions you can find online.
I just blast music.
Okay, well, blast is not good for your eardrums. But anyway,
my ears are already damaged.
Things, but the thing is, make it a priority. Put it on the calendar. When you find something you like, put it on the calendar. There are lots of classes online, a lot of free ones. So, try on YouTube. There's guided meditation. So it's all out there. Just look for it. Socializing is so important. Okay. You understand because you've probably lost the social connections with a lot of people you know. So your child may have lost the just general connections they have at school, after school activities, in school activities, lunchtime. There are a lot of different things that they're missing out on. Getting together with family over the holidays.
Not something I miss personally.
Remember, a lot of kids turn their cameras off when they're in class. So they're not necessarily getting any kind of connection. Texting is also not give them the same kind of personal connection they need. So, but you have to replicate those as much as possible. So, especially if your child doesn't have friends. So like Lawrence and his friends kind of naturally gravitated toward, they use a Discord server to chat. They have multiple Discord servers. They play games together online. If that's not the kind of thing that works for your child or your family, or your child doesn't have friends, one thing, for instance, if Lawrence hadn't had friends, what I do is probably connect with my best friend who has a child who's Lawrence's age, and just have them do things online like playing Jackbox Games. Jackbox Games. We did something with a family over on Christmas, playing a game called Drawful. Remember, kids also can fight with their friends at this time just as any other time. So if you're assuming that your child has friends to rely on, you don't know exactly what may have happened or may be going on at this point. So you want to talk to them about their friends and figure out what their friend situation is. Kids need socializing, and as much, if not more, than adults do. And if you're concerned about your child's adaptation during this time and their emotional and mental health, you want to definitely consider getting them diagnosed by a psychiatrist, preferably, even more preferably by a child psychiatrist. You also want to consider, if they're having problems, getting them a therapist. This is a short-term. Therapists are often short-term situations. Forget what you may have heard about years and years of therapy. When there are situations like this, people often need to talk to someone. Don't say, well, they have me to talk to. First of all, you're probably not trained to talk to someone the way a therapist does. Secondly, there are going to be things your child can't talk to you about or doesn't want to talk to you about. So they need, in a lot of situations, they're going to need this third party to, who's what's the word I'm looking for? Impartial, and trained. So, so many people are getting therapy online. This whole situation has really sped up the adoption of online therapy. So, a lot of them are kind of overwhelmed because the need is so great. But just get something set up if you think this is the right thing for your child, and then you can't be in the room, by the way, when they're in therapy, because they need privacy.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter that they're your child. They need privacy, and also,
and that applies in a general sense. Yeah. Give your child privacy.
Yes, but not too much. One of the things that someone suggested, they found that their child was not engaged during classes, and found that if a family member was sitting next to them, they tended to be more engaged not next to them, near them.
Because because if they aren't, then the family member's going to yell at them.
I'm not sure if that was the case.
No,
but I think it's too easy for a lot of us to just drift without that immediate connection. And if they're having trouble in school, you need to be, or if they're just in general, actually, You should keep in touch with your child's teacher, your child's guidance counselor if they have that. Whoever, whatever teacher they're talking to and they're close with is someone that you want to stay in touch with one-on-one, you and that person, because they see your child in a different situation, and that might help you to, decode what's going on with them.
If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a like. If you didn't, you can give it a dislike. If you want to say anything at all, you can leave it in the form of a comment. And if you want to see more, you can subscribe. But in any case, we hope that you have a nice day.
Take care.